Cries for justice are a frequent theme of the Bible, and especially of the Old Testament, running like a bright red ribbon through a piece of fabric. The Psalms and the prophets can be seen as a kind of conversation between God and the faithful. In the prophets, God cries out for the people to practice justice, and in the Psalms, the people cry out to God for God's justice to be done. This morning's psalm selection from the daily lectionary stands between these two sides of the conversation, giving voice neither to God's speech nor to the people's cry to God. Instead, it's a sort of exhortation from one within the community to trust in God's coming justice. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. And this is your daily devotional from Monday, September 2nd, 2024. We all know the frustration of waiting with hopeful expectation, only to be told to keep waiting. I've seen a crowd in an airport waiting room more than once give a collective groan when the gate agent announces for a third or fourth time that the flight will be delayed in boarding. Some of the people worry whether they'll make their connecting flight at the next airport. But mostly, people just get frustrated with the uncertainty of when or even if the flight will ever depart. The psalmist knows this feeling and answers it by doubling down on faith in God's help which is to come, writing, "For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall never be shaken." The psalmist is declaring to the reader that waiting on God is not a vain exercise, but one that does require both patience and hope. The hope is based on God's surpassing excellence, especially when compared to human tormentors. How long will you assail a person, the psalmist writes? Will you batter your victim, all of you, as you would a leaning wall, a tottering fence? Their only plan is to bring down a person of prominence. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. Then the psalmist returns to home base, echoing the opening verse of the psalm, reminding the reader of his own faith and urging them to maintain theirs. He writes, "For God alone my soul waits in silence, for my hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. On God rests my deliverance and my honor. My mighty rock, my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us." These verses echo two other well-known psalms. Verse 5 echoes not only the opening verse of the psalm, but also a psalm we read a couple of weeks ago, Psalm 130. Remember these verses from that great psalm? "I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord, more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning." The psalm also echoes Psalm 46, the psalm on which Martin Luther based his great Reformation hymn, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." The psalm begins, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear." And then the psalmist punctuates this point by comparing human strength and the power of human plans to God and God's ways. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balances they go up, for they are together lighter than a breath. Put no confidence in extortion, and set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. Once God has spoken, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God, and steadfast love belongs to you, O Lord, for you repay to all according to their work. So the psalmist urges the people to remain hopeful in the face of torments and injustices. And why? Because God is infinitely greater than even the worst tormentors we ever face. Tomorrow, Psalm 12 gives voice to an even more desperate plea for help. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.